Hi guys, so just a quick one today. I say quick one, probably going to be about 10 minutes, but I'm going to try and get through it really quickly and be concise and scientific and data driven. So recently, those that don't know, we found the chap that filmed the Kumburgaz UFO footage, the Turkey UFO footage from 2007 to 2009. This guy called Yalcin Yalman. Now, we found him, we did an interview with him. It was about an hour and 15 minutes roughly. I've spoken to him before, during, after, and I'm still in contact with him now. I've been in contact with him whilst making this video as well. Now, because of that video coming out, there's been a renewed interest in the Kumburgaz UFO footage. There's been interest from debunkers, lots of interest from debunkers. And I found that there's a lot of inconsistencies. There's a lot of leaps being made. So I went into the Metabunk thread and I had a good look around, and there's some good people in there, but I would say that it's not as scientific as I was hoping. However, like I say, there's some good people in there who had resolved it as unresolved, and they put forward some really good arguments, some good stuff in there. However, there are other people that had some theories and they've resolved it as debunked, or that's certainly how it appears. Mick West had put out a tweet or a post, and now that it's X, on shortly after our video came out, saying that, this has been debunked and here's a really good video from the sneezing monkey. Now, the sneezing monkey, I've watched the video, I've compiled a load of notes, I've spoken to Yalcin, I've done a ton of research over the last couple of days to respond to that. So this is going to be a debunking the debunkers video. So as Mick West has offered up this video to help explain why it's been debunked, of all of the debunking videos out there, and because the sneezing monkey has used Metabunk to help him make that video, we can assume that this video is the gold standard of debunkers videos. So if we're going to debunk a debunkers video, we might as well debunk the gold standard video. So let's crack on.
So in today's video, I want to do a deep dive into the Kumburgaz Turkey UFO video. This is a legendary case. It has been requested many times by you guys in the comments under my debunking videos. A lot of people claim that this is undebunkable, and in a way that is true. I don't think it is possible to fully disprove or debunk this video, so to say, but there's plenty of red flags in this footage.
So we'll just pause it there for a second. He's fully open. He's not able to fully debunk this video, which is good. He mentioned some red flags. We're going to cover those as well.
The footage was filmed by a man called Yalcin. I hope I'm saying it right. And by the way, he goes by different names. There are interviews where he gives himself a different name, so that's already slightly odd.
So not weird at all. In Turkey, they've got different characters, a little hooky C underneath the C in his first name. In Turkey, it's common to have two first names. Very, very common. He does.
Now, this man who shot the footage, Yalcin Yalman, that you see on the left-hand side here, casually smoking a cigarette and making me personally wonder whether it's actually a good idea to give this kind of technology in the hands like this man, because it might be dangerous.
Why? Okay, move on.
But he claims that over the years, over those 3 years where he filmed all this footage, there were more than 20 other witnesses who saw the object as well. I couldn't find any other footage. No one else filmed it. Maybe that's because he has this quite high-end equipment with like a high-grade teleconversion lens that just allowed for like extreme zooms, as you can see in the footage. But one of the witnesses who allegedly witnessed him filming this footage, some of it, was Dr. Roger Leir. Now, Dr. Roger K. Leir is a legendary figure within the world of UFOs. He died 2014, so 10 years ago. But he said, and I'm quoting here, "I was there when it was filmed. We were looking at a monitor through the camera. At that point, we must have had between 6 and 8 people in that vicinity witnessing it when it filmed." So this man claims that he saw this man shooting some of the footage live. Besides him making that claim, there is nothing else to verify it, at least not what I could find.
Okay, so it's good that he mentions Dr. Roger Leir. Dr. Roger Leir is very famous for saying that he saw this footage live being recorded. He watched it on the camcorder small screen, saw him zooming into the craft, and he talks about it. He's talked about it publicly. I'll play a recording now.
If this is a video which is called a Kumburgaz video, which is a close-up of a craft, in fact, so close that you can see the occupants, it is 100% real, and I was there as that was filmed.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. I wanted to know.
Up on my website. Unfortunately, the one that's the depiction that's up there is not as clear as the other footage I have, and we're going to switch it soon. The one I have is the clearest footage of it. Also, I think the audience would like to know that footage was taken by the Cirrus UFO organization to a university in Istanbul, and their optical physicists went over that with a fine-tooth comb. And
we'll pause it there for a second because he mentions an optical physicist who conducted some tests on this footage and wrote a report. That's not mentioned in this Debunkers video, and it's very, very important. Perhaps one of the only scientific experiments, test, or whatever you want to call it, conducted on this footage from history, and it didn't make it into the Debunkers video, which is interesting.
And it was on all the major television broadcasts in Turkey that that was the real McCoy. There was no faking. There was no trickery of the camera. There was not an aberration. It was not a frisbee. It talked about the reflected light off of the craft, which was coming from the full moon, and that the areas where you see the occupants are some kind of a backlighting.
Okay, now you said you were there when this was filmed. How close did this thing get to you and whoever else was there observing it?
Not as close as you might see from the footage. We were on the beach and filming out over the water. And what we saw is something bright that was under the moon. So let's say the moon was the size of a dime. This would have been the size of a flashlight. And we were more interested at that point in the moon than the little bright light that was under it. But the camera that we were using had a 400 millimeter lens on it and an electronic doubler. So as we pushed on the craft, which means focused or on the craft, it got more clear and more clear and more clear. And when we centered on it, those are the shots that became famous.
So Dr. Roger Leir is essentially confirming that he has seen at least one of these bits of footage capturing real-time a UFO in the sky. It's not something that's misidentified. He saw it physically, he vouches for it, and he goes on to say in a number of other interviews the same thing, and he confirms it. Now, he's not going around making a habit of this with lots of other people's videos and images of UFOs. It's just this one. He didn't know Yalcin. He was at a conference in Turkey. Yalcin was there. Yalcin said, "I'm capturing all of these UFOs. Come and see." And he did, and they caught it. Now, the Sneezing Monkey mentions earlier on that nobody else has seen this, nobody else has filmed this, and that's a concern. There's no sort of witnesses to this, and certainly none that have been filmed whilst they were witnessing it. What I would say is that this camcorder back in 2007 was high tech. Okay, this camcorder was worth between $1,500 American dollars and $2,000 American dollars, and the average income in Turkey in 2007 was between $800 US dollars and $1,200 US dollars. So that's the equivalent of, in the UK, probably mid-30s is the average wage. So a camcorder costing about $40,000 pounds. So not many people are going to be able to afford something that costs more than their annual income to go and capture a UFO just because some guy on the beach is capturing it. That's fair. There's no red flags there, in my opinion. It's a very, very expensive bit of kit, and most people can't afford that bit of kit. And there's a guy that's working night shifts, and he's got a tripod and the lens as well that costs extra. So it's not just the camera, and he's capturing this stuff. So it all adds up to me. And I think that makes it more credible.
So let's start with the red flags. And these are really just a bunch of common sense questions that a lot of especially UFO believers seem to like to avoid. First and foremost, this area where he shot that is a very densely populated area. A lot of people, I mean, look, it's not as densely populated as Manhattan or whatever, but a lot of people are living along this coast, yet he is the only guy who ever filmed this over all those years.
Okay, we covered that. We can move on.
And then there are aspects like this one, okay? The footage that you see on the left-hand side here was shot in 2008, in August. And then the footage you see on the right-hand side was allegedly shot in May 2009. Now, this seems to be the exact same object, right? And he films what? The exact same object in the exact same place 1 year apart? I mean, come on. That just makes no sense, right? Like what, the aliens come back, never films them moving whatsoever, but they sit at the exact same spot 1 year later with the exact same object. That's just, I don't know, man. That's already like, I don't know. To me, again, coming back to the point that it's being a stationary object, considering it never moves, to me, it already indicates possibly an object on land, right?
So there's a couple of things there. The first thing is that they're exactly the same and therefore a year apart. That's ridiculous. It can't be the same. Now, even from the images that he's using in this footage, they're not exactly the same. You can see a slight variation just here. But equally, in the footage that we've seen, the object is at different angles. So you've got one piece of footage where the object's kind of, if you're looking at the screen, it's kind of that angle if you're looking from here, and the other one is completely side on rather than like that, as you can see here. And so if it's the same object, it's at a different angle. So clearly we've got different objects at different angles.
Now, when looking at all these images, all these different images, there's one thing that I and a few other people on Metabunk as well noticed, and that is that it eerily looks like a CCTV camera screen, a cut-off CCTV camera screen. And what I mean by that, let's look at an example of like some CCTV footage. Obviously, this is not from the same site, but you get the idea. Do you see that rounding? Because obviously they're using fisheye lenses that really stretch the angle out so you get the maximum view over whatever you want to observe. But you get this iconic rounding in this CCTV footage, and that is very much reflected in some of the shots that you see here. And that would also explain why the shots of this UFO look similar due to the rounding shape, but not always the same.
Okay, I'm going to pause it just there because this is hugely inaccurate. With a fisheye lens, the curvature is more prominent the closer you are and less prominent the further away you are. So the images that he's showing you in that footage is really close up, is the car park or whatever that the CCTV is recording. If he's suggesting that this is much, much further away, and it does appear as he goes on to say in this footage that it might be the entrance to the Marina, which is much further away than the little car park, then it doesn't really make sense. So for clarity, the distortion in the curvature is close up, and it's far less prominent the further and further away that you go. This isn't just me saying it. Here's 2 papers where it says it.
And now let's go one step further. This is a shot that was actually taken from this UFO footage. And you can kind of see there is like an element that comes here from the left-hand side, and there's an element that comes here from the right-hand side. It's dark, right? It's at night. It's footage at night. But these 2 elements seem to be illuminated. And now this is a shot of the entrance to the Marina in that area in question. Do you see the similarities? If these 2 little stone walls, entrances, would be illuminated, the right one slightly bigger, the left one slightly thinner, and obviously now it's stretched, like we said, it's due to the fisheye lens. It is now stretched. It is not a straight shot like the one you see here, but it would be stretched, forced into this 3-dimensional circular angle almost. There seems to be a hint that at least this particular shot could be CCTV footage through the fisheye lens, through the low quality of these cameras, and then through the CRT monitor of this entrance to the Marina.
So just so I'm clear, he's suggesting that this rocky side of the Marina is these clearly metallic objects. That's one of the theories. Okay, well, I mean, it's clearly not. Let's move on.
Now, if you look at the footage, you can see it is an object that seems to be rather small on the screen, on the firmament, and then he zooms into it quite a bit. So how would you achieve that footage? If it would be some kind of CRT monitor that shows CCTV footage, if you zoom into that, surely the light of the monitor would also illuminate the frame of the screen, and you would see other elements. How would he get this effect that it is only that little stripe, that little light on the horizon that he then zooms into? And to that, I would personally say it might be a Pepper's Ghost effect. Now, in the simplest form, you can see what a Pepper's Ghost effect is here, and it's actually a pretty good example. And you can see a 45-degree angled screen over here. It's very common, like it's used as an effect in Disney's haunted houses and stuff in the Disney parks to give the illusion of an object kind of hovering in midair. Now, if you would have his CCTV monitor as you see actually the screen down here, angled at 90 degrees, showing the CCTV footage in question. And maybe the screen that he was using was not as big as this giant perspex sheet that you see here. Maybe it was just like a small piece of perspex that he angled in the right angle, so it just reflects part of this CCTV footage. Hence, you only see part of it. And that would also explain why this semicircular shape is actually cut off at the bottom, because maybe he only had a small piece of perspex that was just reflecting a small piece of that screen underneath. He puts that in front of a window or maybe attaches it to one of the poles that we saw earlier on the terrace.
I can be quite dismissive on the Pepper's ghost effect because there's some science behind it. Now, Yalcin took the footage to the Science and Technology Research Board of Turkey's National Observatory, and it was analysed by Professor PhD Zeki, EKER, who's the director of the National Observatory of Tubatek. Now, he assessed this footage, and in these documents, it's been translated officially to the footage images of the object which visibly have certain configurations are not computer animations, not special video effects or studio recreated images or models. The footage is genuine. He goes on to say, the reflections of the light on the objects are sometimes caused by the moon, which was in a convenient location at the time, and sometimes caused by some other source of light. So he is confirming that two things, really important key things here. The footage is genuine, and reflections of light on the objects are sometimes caused by the moon. So if they're sometimes caused by the moon and the object is genuine and not a model, the Pepper's ghost effect is out. Because if we're saying that this is a piece of perspex with a TV screen under it or some kind of screen underneath it projecting this image, or how we get moonlight. Okay, let's move on.
Theory number 2. And that is, in simplest terms, that he's filming the ring of his own camera as a reflection in the window in front of him. Okay, let's look at, for example, this footage that you see here. This is a screenshot of the alleged UFO. And let's look at this camera ring. Do you see the similarity? It has the indentation in the middle. If you would film that from far away, you know, you're, I don't know, 2-3 meters away from the glass, which means that the reflection again is 6 meters away from yourself, and then you zoom in. With this not great camera, it would all blur up, and you could imagine you get a result like that. Even little details like, you know, the technical, I don't know what they...
I don't need to go into this full theory because we've already debunked it. We've already got the optical physicist saying that it's got moonlight, so it can't be some little camera that's in the other side of his room. We've also seen that the footage captures the moonlight at the same time as the two objects in frame. It zooms into the moonlight, into the moon, and then it zooms into the object. And also, and this is a really big point, they've had 17 years to take a photo of a camera lens that matches, including the use of artificial intelligence. I mean, you can drop a picture into Google now and it will find you the exact same image. They haven't been able to, and there's lots and lots and lots of photographs and screenshots of all of these different objects filmed over the years, and not one single lens photograph that matches identically or even really close. So I think we can move on to the next theory. That one just doesn't hold water. Debunked.
Now, let's move forward to theory number 3. And again, keep in mind, some of these theories might be responsible for some of the footage. Okay, like some of it might be his camera equipment. Some might be some trick he's doing with the CCTV footage. And some of these shots might just be a cruise ship, okay? If you look at this breakdown here, again, image that we're talking about on the top left-hand side here, and it has been overlaid over a cruise ship, because a lot of people don't understand that the footage that he shot was not always way above the horizon. Some of it was, but some of it, you can see it in the actual footage, in the stabilized footage, is very close to the horizon as well, and definitely at the height where a cruise ship would be. Now, if a cruise ship like this is just very, very far away, you zoom into it, you get a result like that. I don't understand, it's the question that's kind of still open, why there aren't more lights, right? Surely a cruise ship would have other lights on it that need to be on in order for it to be visible for helicopters and other potential aircraft and stuff that could fly into them. So that's not really answered by that, but you can see that the shape is almost a perfect match, right? It's a perfect match. So I would say, in terms of popularity, this is probably the most popular explanation that a lot of people put forward.
Okay, so he's using the term perfect match. So just quickly, firstly, it's not perfect. You can see from the right-hand side of the image of the ship, of the craft, the object, whatever, there's a bit of a sharp edge that doesn't quite fit. So it's not perfect at all. And it's a blurry freeze frame of the footage. So they found the first sort of fat bulbous bit and they've attached it to a ship that's got a fat bit on it. You could probably find pretty much anything in the water that's got a fat bit on it that you could assign to that. Now, if you play the rest of the footage, the object is very clear. That it zooms in. It's a nice metallic. There's no windows underneath it. And again, as he recognizes, there's no lights. And we've seen that footage where we zoom out and the moon's there and the object, the craft is there. And you zoom into the moon, zoom out, zoom into the object, zoom out. There are no lights in or around that. Now, maritime law says you have to have lights by law, and there are none. And if it's a cruise ship, there will be loads of lights. All the windows will be illuminated for all the people still up partying and in their rooms. Or if it's a cargo ship, you'd still have lights on board. You'd have a couple of floodlights and your navigation lights. That's just the law. There aren't any. So that's a massive red flag for this debunk. And equally, the object doesn't match. Really, really important to consider that they've had 17 years to find an exact part of a ship, the exact make and model of the ship, and say this is the ship and that's the part of the ship. There are millions of stock images. Every company that's built a cruise liner or a cargo ship will have their blueprints and their images online. There would have been ships that have been bought and sold. Those images would be online in the archives. They've not been able to find a single ship. Now, if we're saying that this is their best theory, and if their best theory is that it's a cruise ship, fine, find one that matches. This one doesn't. The image that they found doesn't match, and the fact that there's no lights on the object, there's no lights on the ship, the cruise ship, and no lights on the craft, just moonlight, it just doesn't add up. So if that's the best theory, then we'll have to leave it at that. So let's have a quick look. Just to recap, their theories are the curvature of a CCTV camera recording a CCTV camera, somehow zooming in without the picture getting worse, and doesn't make sense. And we talked about the curvature. The further away you are, the less curvature it is. The closer you are, the more curvature. So it doesn't make sense if it's far away. The next theory was the Pepper's ghost. That doesn't make sense because we know that optical physicist says is moonlight, not a model or something like that. Science. And then we have a camera lens. Again, no one's been able to find a camera lens. I mean, how many have been bought or sold on eBay? And we can't find a stock picture or an archive picture on Google using artificial intelligence, dropping an image into Google AI, and not a single one of all of these screenshots that we've got of all of the images over the years, not a single match for any camera lens anywhere ever. Doesn't make sense. And then, of course, the last theory is the cruise ship theory. So none of them match, even close. And so that's it. Not debunked, unresolved. Now, I'm not saying that it's extraterrestrials from Zeta Reticuli. I'm not saying they're interdimensional. I'm not saying what they are. What I'm saying is that this is unresolved and it's certainly not debunked. And if this video is the creme de la creme, the gold standard, as suggested, I would point out by Mick West, who is the OG of debunkers, then I think it's unresolved. And I think they're wrong. So just a quick one before I end the video. I want to be fully exhaustive and I don't have to come back and deal with this later on. I want to cover everything in the video. There is another point that's mentioned online by a few people, not in this particular debunkers video, but just because we want to cover it. Why is there a difference in date in some of the footage? And there's been some speculation that this is a big red flag, that sometimes it's dark when it should be light, sometimes it's light when it should be dark, PM and AM. There's a bit of an issue there. Now, Yalcin's covered this in a video that he did a while back. Essentially, Yalcin is Turkish. He doesn't speak a word of English, doesn't read or write in English. A little bit more now, and with the help of AI in translation, he's able to sort of translate a few things backwards and forwards in sort of broken English. But back then, he didn't know the difference between AM and PM. And in Turkey, AM is OO and PM is OS. it's completely understandable that when you're setting the timer manually on the old-fashioned camcorders that you're going to get AM and PM incorrect. So that's just a thing. So let's just leave that aside. It's not a red flag if you don't know the difference between AM and PM when AM and PM isn't in your vocabulary in your country. Okay, so that's it. It's 3:22 in the morning here in Lincolnshire, so I'm going to go to bed. I hope you've enjoyed this. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Yeah, cool. See you in the next one. Take care, guys.